So the question asked quite often is, which is better, the Canon R5 or the Sony a7S III, the Canon R5C or the Sony FX3, or a combination of those two sets of cameras? Now, full disclaimer, this is going to be a very short-winded answer. I'm going to keep it as shortcut as possible and give you the most simplified version of this answer with a detailed video coming possibly in the future. Now, I've used both the Sony a7S III and the Canon R5, and I've fiddled around with the FX3 and had a hands-on with the Canon R5C. So I have a little bit of experience in kind of using and handling all of these cameras. If you want to make a comparison between which is better for things like YouTube and filmmaking and documentaries, that's the demographic I'm kind of aiming at. I'm not aiming at your general content creation or things for social media. I'm aiming at proper filmmaking, documentaries, professional grade videos, and YouTube. So to begin with, the Canon R5 is a fantastic camera. It's got 8K, it has a 45 megapixel sensor, in-body stabilization. It's absolutely fantastic, right? I've used it for a while and I absolutely love the camera. I cannot fault the quality that comes out of this camera. And then you have the Sony a7S III, which is the essential competitor. Now, it has a 12 megapixel sensor, but that makes it better in low light, and it's a more video-centric camera, with video being the primary objective for this camera. It doesn't do 8K, but it does do 4K, but the 4K quality that comes out of this is absolutely crisp, and it's amazing, like I said, in low light situations. Both of these cameras are absolutely fantastic, but if I was to choose one or the other for pure video, then I would have to give it to the a7S III. My reason behind that is that the Canon R5, as fantastic as it is, with its 45 megapixel sensor for photos, it still has quite a few limits. One of those being is the overheating. Yes, the firmware fixes that. That doesn't mean that the camera still doesn't get hot. It's just that the warning is delayed now and it doesn't shut you off in the middle of recording. So the camera still gets pretty hot. It's just that it doesn't tell you about it. Second thing is the in-body stabilization. The IBIS has a bit of a wobble and I don't like that. Third thing is it doesn't have unlimited record time, and if you're going to be doing a lot of heavy work in terms of video, unlimited record time is something that you would want from your camera. It's an ideal scenario. Sony a7S III has all of that. It doesn't overheat, it doesn't have the wobble issue with its IBIS. The IBIS is pretty good, and it also has unlimited record time. But regardless of which one you pick up, you're probably not going to be disappointed with the quality that either of them gives. So if it's purely based on quality, then they're quite equivalent. If you want to base it on other things such as ease of use and kind of functionality suited for video and filmmaking, then the a7S III wins. Now, moving on to the R5C versus the FX3, then this gets a little bit more complicated. Now, the FX3 is essentially the thinner version of the a7S III. It's pretty much exactly the same thing in a more compact cinema style package, with the R5C being the equivalent for the Canon R5. It's more centric towards cinema. It has that EOS Cinema menu, as well as being a true hybrid where you switch between photo and video modes, giving you the unique features available to both. The Canon R5C also has availability of a higher number of codecs and different codecs that you can choose from, as well as Canon Cine Raw Lite codec, which is fantastic to film in. It goes up to 8K 60 FPS with external power. It doesn't have in-body stabilization, but that's not much of a deal breaker because it then has unlimited record time as well as that fan to prevent overheating, so it doesn't overheat like the Canon R5 does. So if you put these two together, it's much closer because the quality that the FX3 produces is pretty much equivalent to what the a7S III produces. It's just a bit more centric towards cinema and filmmaking. Also, the FX3 is a Netflix approved camera, so take from that what you want. Now, the benefits of having the Canon R5C in this case is that the Canon R5C does have that 45 megapixel sensor. So if you are going to be doing things like YouTube and other sorts of content creation with that camera, then it probably has a little bit of an edge because it does do 8K 60, it does do those high resolutions and frame rates. It's an absolute beast of a camera, and I would personally say that in this case, despite the FX3 having all of the similar kind of features as the a7S III and being more cinema centric, more lightweight even, I would give it to the Canon R5C personally. Keep that in mind. This is my personal opinion. The Canon R5C is a fantastic little package which basically gives you everything that the Canon R5 should have given you in the first place, but better. And if you are a content creator who's also doing documentaries and stuff like that and professional filmmaking, then having that 45 megapixel photo mode in its hybrid settings is an absolute game changer, because that means that you don't need to carry a second camera around to take high quality photos and take full use of that 45 megapixel sensor that the camera has, whereas the FX3 is limited with that 12 megapixels. You're not going to be able to do a lot of high-end photography with it. Yes, the photos you take with it are going to be good enough for most use cases. If you're going to be doing a lot of high-level professional photography as well as video, then definitely the Canon R5C wins. Now remember, this is your simplified answer. Take from it what you would, but this is also my opinion after having used and experienced using these cameras. Overall, I think that no matter which of these cameras you choose, you're not going to be disappointed with your choice because they are all absolutely fantastic. And there are workarounds to the downsides of pretty much everything. Like I said, with the R5, the overheating issue, it's not a massive problem because yes, it does overheat, but that warning signal that the camera used to give at short intervals is now no longer there, so you can actually use that camera for longer periods of time. Now, whether in your work you're going to end up needing to run that camera at 120 FPS for long periods of time, or even in 8K for long periods of time, and then having to face those overheating issues, that's a whole different matter. And with the Sony a7S III and the FX3, yes, the 12 megapixels isn't the best in terms of photography, but if your focus is filmmaking, then you don't really need to worry about the photo side of it too much. So yeah, any of these cameras is fantastic, and that's pretty much my summed up answer for this question. I hope that helps you guys. I hope that was informative. If you want to see my hands-on with the Canon R5C or an in-depth discussion about the camera or any of my other videos about cameras and tech, then make sure you hit one of those links on the screen right now. Until next time guys, this is Kai24 signing out.